Jake Morrison stood at the massive window of the Zephrian palace, looking out at the strange alien city below. The buildings were tall and twisted like glass spirals, and 3 purple moons hung in the dark sky. He had traveled many light years from Earth to reach this place, hoping to make peace between humans and the powerful Zephrian Empire. The meeting room behind him was filled with alien nobles who looked like tall, pale humans with silver eyes and pointed ears. They wore fancy robes and spoke in voices that sounded like music. But Jake could hear them whispering and laughing when they thought he wasn't listening. He knew they didn't respect humans. To them, his people were just primitive animals who had barely learned to fly between stars. Human Morrison called Lord Commander Vex, the leader of the group. His voice was cold and mocking. "We have discussed your request for a trade agreement." Jake turned around and walked back to the long crystal table where the aliens sat. He tried to stand tall and look confident, even though he felt small in this room full of beings who thought they were better than him. "What have you decided?" Jake asked. Vex smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "We will agree to your terms, but only if you accept our conditions." "What conditions?" The other aliens started whispering and giggling among themselves. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Something was wrong. "To seal this agreement properly, you must take a bride from our people," Vex announced. "It is our ancient custom." Jake blinked in surprise. "A bride? But I don't understand. This is just a trade deal." "Are you refusing our generous offer?" asked Lady Nera, another noble with jewels woven into her silver hair. "Perhaps humans are too weak to handle Zephrian women." More laughter filled the room. Jake realized this was some kind of test or trap. If he said no, they would call humans cowards. If he said yes, they probably had something terrible planned. "I accept," Jake said quietly. The laughter stopped. The aliens looked surprised. They had expected him to refuse. "Very well," Vex said after a moment. "We will choose a suitable bride for you." That evening, Jake sat alone in his guest room, wondering what he had gotten himself into. The room was beautiful but strange, with walls that glowed soft blue and furniture that seemed to float in the air. He was staring at a holographic star map when someone knocked on his door. "Come in," he called. Door slid open, and a young Zephrian woman entered. She was shorter than most of her people, with long silver hair and the same pale skin and pointed ears. But her eyes were different. They were violet instead of silver, and they looked sad. "I am Lyra," she said in a soft voice. "They have chosen me to be your bride." Jake stood up quickly. "Oh, hello. I'm Jake Morrison." They looked at each other awkwardly for a moment. Lyra seemed nervous and embarrassed. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to," Jake said gently. "I know this wasn't your choice." Lyra's eyes widened with surprise. "You would let me refuse?" "Of course. This whole thing seems like some kind of game to your people. I don't want you to suffer because of their politics." For the first time, Lyra smiled a little. "You are not what I expected, human Jake Morrison." "What did you expect?" "They told me humans were brutal and stupid. They said you would treat me like property." She looked down at her hands. "They chose me because I am from a minor house. My family has little power. If you rejected me, it would not matter to them." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. These aliens had planned to humiliate both of them. They wanted to make him look bad and hurt this innocent woman at the same time. "Well, I'm not rejecting you," Jake said firmly. "If you're willing, I'll be honored to marry you. But I want you to know, I will treat you with respect. You'll be my partner, not my property." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. "You really mean that?" "I do." The next morning, the wedding ceremony took place in the palace's great hall. Hundreds of Zephrian nobles attended, all expecting to watch the human make a fool of himself. The ceremony was conducted in the Zephrian language, which Jake didn't understand, but he repeated the words they told him to say. Lyra wore a dress that looked like it was made of starlight, and Jake wore his best Earth diplomatic uniform. When they were pronounced married, the aliens clapped politely, but Jake could see disappointment in their faces. Their joke hadn't worked the way they planned out as they walked out of the hall together. Lyra whispered to Jake, "They expected you to embarrass me." "Well, they're going to be disappointed," Jake whispered back. "Are you ready to come to my ship?" Lyra nodded. "I think I am ready for many things to change." Neither of them knew how right she was. The aliens thought they had played a clever trick, but they had actually started something that would change both their peoples forever. As Jake and Lyra left the palace together, Lord Commander Vex watched them go with a frown. "This is not over," he muttered to himself. "We will see how long this human's kindness lasts." But he was wrong about Jake Morrison, and he was very wrong about what would happen next. The human ship called New Horizon was nothing like what Lyra had expected. As Jake led her through the corridors, she looked around in wonder. The Zephrians had told her that human ships were dirty, cramped metal boxes where people lived like animals. But this ship was clean and bright, with plants growing in wall gardens and children's drawings stuck to bulletin boards. "This is the main living area," Jake explained as they entered a large room with comfortable chairs and tables. Several humans were sitting around talking and laughing. When they saw Jake and Lyra, they all stood up. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my wife, Lyra," Jake said. A woman with short black hair and kind eyes stepped forward first. "I'm Lisa Chon, the pilot. Welcome to our ship, Lyra." "I'm Carlos Rodriguez," said a man with graying hair and oil stains on his hands. "I keep the engines running. Nice to meet you." A young woman in a white coat smiled warmly. "Kate Williams, ship's doctor. If you need anything at all, please let me know." Lyra stood quietly, not sure what to say. These humans were being so friendly, but she had been taught that they were dangerous savages. "Are you hungry?" Lisa asked. "Carlos makes the best soup in 3-star systems. I can cook other things too," Carlos laughed. "But soup is my specialty." Jake put his hand gently on Lyra's arm. "Would you like to eat with us? Or would you prefer to rest first? It's been a long day." The kindness in his voice surprised her again. "I would like to eat, if that's okay." Soon they were all sitting around a table, eating Carlos's vegetable soup and fresh bread. The humans asked Lyra questions about her home world, but they were respectful questions, not the rude ones she had expected. "What's it like having 3 moons?" Kate asked. "The tides must be incredible." "They are," Lyra said softly. "The beaches change completely twice a day. Children learn to swim by following the tide pools." "That sounds beautiful," Lisa said. "We only have 1 moon on Earth, but it's still pretty amazing." After dinner, Jake showed Lyra to their quarters. It was a nice room with a big window looking out at the stars, and a bed big enough for 2 people. But Jake pointed to a comfortable chair in the corner. "I can sleep there," he said. "I want you to be comfortable." Lyra looked at him with confusion. "But we are married now." "Yes, but that doesn't mean I have any right to make you uncomfortable. We barely know each other." No Zephrian male had ever been so considerate to her. In her culture, wives were expected to obey their husbands without question. "You are very strange, Jake Morrison," she said. "Strange good or strange bad?" "I'm not sure yet." Over the next few weeks, Lyra began to understand why Jake was different. She watched how all the humans on the ship treated each other. They worked together like a family. When someone made a mistake, they helped fix it instead of punishing them. When children misbehaved, their parents talked to them with patience instead of anger. Lisa taught Lyra how to play human card games. Carlos showed her how the ship's engines worked, amazed by her knowledge of advanced energy systems. Kate introduced her to human music and movies. "Your people think we're primitive," Kate said one evening as they listened to a classical symphony. "But this music was written 300 years ago by a human named Mozart. Does it sound primitive to you?" Lyra closed her eyes and listened to the beautiful music. "No," she admitted. "It sounds like what angels might sing." But the biggest surprise was Jake himself. Every morning he asked what she wanted for breakfast. Every evening he asked about her day and really listened to her answers. He never raised his voice or demanded anything from her. When she had nightmares about being trapped on an alien ship, he held her hand until she felt safe again. One day, Lyra was working in the ship's computer center, trying to help upgrade their navigation systems. Her people's technology was much more advanced, and she thought she could improve the humans' equipment. But she was having trouble making the alien and human systems work together. "Problems?" Jake asked, sitting down beside her. "I'm trying to integrate Zephrian quantum processing with your linear circuits, but they're not compatible," she said with frustration. Jake looked at the screens covered with technical diagrams. "I don't understand any of this, but maybe that's not the point. What if instead of forcing them to work the same way, you found a way to let them work differently, but toward the same goal?" Lyra stared at him. "You mean like a bridge between two different languages?" "Exactly." She worked for 3 more hours and finally found the solution. The new navigation system was twice as fast and 3 times more accurate than either the human or Zephrian systems alone. "Jake," she said excitedly, "look what we did." "What you did," he corrected. "I just asked a question." "No, what we did together. Your people and mine, working as partners instead of one trying to be better than the other." That night, as they lay in their bed, they had started sleeping together after the second week. But Jake had never pushed for anything more. Lyra turned to face him. "The Zephrians were wrong about humans," she said quietly. "We're not perfect." Jake replied, "We make mistakes and sometimes we're cruel to each other, but we try to do better. My people think they're already perfect. They don't try to improve because they believe they can't get any better." Jake was quiet for a moment. "What do you think?" "I think," Lyra said slowly, "that I'm learning what it means to be truly civilized. And it has nothing to do with technology or power. What does it have to do with?" She moved closer to him. "It has to do with how you treat someone who can't fight back, how you act when no one is making you be good, how you choose kindness when you could choose cruelty." Jake wrapped his arms around her. "I'm glad you're here, Lyra, not because of any political agreement, but because I'm starting to care about you. A lot." Lyra felt her heart beating faster. For the first time since leaving her home world, she felt truly happy. "I care about you, too, Jake Morrison, more than I thought possible." Outside their window, the stars continued their ancient dance, but inside the ship, something new was beginning. Love was growing between 2 people from different worlds, and it would soon change everything. 3 months had passed since Lyra came aboard the New Horizon, and the ship felt more like home to her than the Zephrian palace ever had. She woke up each morning excited to start the day, working alongside Jake and the crew on projects that helped both their peoples. The navigation system she had improved was working perfectly, cutting their travel time between star systems in half. But that was just the beginning. Lyra had also helped Kate upgrade the medical bay with Zephrian healing technology, and she worked with Carlos to make the engines run more efficiently. "You're like a miracle worker," Lisa told her one afternoon as they sat in the ship's garden area. "Every system you touch gets better." "It's not magic," Lyra laughed. "It's just that human and Zephrian technology work well together when you combine them properly. Like cooking. You take the best ingredients from different places and make something new. But the best part of Lyra's new life wasn't the technology or the work. It was Jake. Over the months, their friendship had grown into something deeper. Jake made her laugh with his silly jokes. He listened when she told him stories about her childhood. He held her when she cried about missing her sister back home. And slowly, Lyra found herself falling in love with this kind, gentle human. One evening, Jake took her to the ship's observation deck, a small room with windows on all sides, where you could see the stars all around. He had brought a picnic dinner and some of Carlos's homemade wine. "This is beautiful," Lyra said, looking out at the colorful nebula they were passing through. "It looks like someone painted the sky." "Not as beautiful as you," Jake said quietly. Lyra turned to look at him. In the soft starlight, his brown eyes were warm and full of affection. "Jake, ... I know this is complicated," he said, taking her hands in his. "I know we got married because of politics and alien schemes. But what I feel for you now has nothing to do with any of that." "What do you feel?" "I love you, Lyra. Not because you're my alien wife or because you make our ship run better. I love you because you're kind and smart and brave. I love the way you scrunch up your nose when you're thinking hard about a problem. I love how you always share your dessert with the children on the ship." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. "I love you too, Jake Morrison. I never thought I could love anyone the way I love you." They kissed under the stars, and Lyra knew that this was what happiness felt like. The next day, Jake did something that surprised everyone on the ship. During the morning meeting, he stood up and looked nervous. "I have an announcement," he said. "Lyra and I are already married, but that was for political reasons. Now I want to marry her again, for real this time. For love." The crew cheered and clapped. Lisa hugged Lyra so hard she could barely breathe. "We're going to have a wedding," Kate announced. A real human wedding with cake and dancing and everything. The crew spent 2 weeks planning the celebration. Carlos learned to make a traditional Earth wedding cake. Lisa programmed the ship's lights to create a beautiful ceremony space in the main hall. Kate found music from both Earth and Zephria to play during the party. On the wedding day, Lyra wore a simple white dress that Kate had made for her, and Jake wore his best uniform. But this time, instead of alien nobles watching them with cruel amusement, they were surrounded by people who loved them. "Do you, Jake Morrison, promise to love and honor Lyra in sickness and health for as long as you both live?" asked Captain Peters, who was performing the ceremony. "I do," Jake said, looking into Lyra's eyes. "Do you, Lyra, promise to love and honor Jake in sickness and health for as long as you both live?" "I do," Lyra said, her voice strong and clear. "Then, by the power given to me as captain of this ship, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." This time when they kissed, it was full of joy and love instead of uncertainty and fear. The party lasted until late into the night. Carlos played guitar and sang love songs. Lisa taught everyone traditional Earth dances. Even the children stayed up past their bedtime to celebrate. But the best part came later, when Jake and Lyra were alone in their quarters. "Are you happy?" Jake asked as they lay together. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Lyra replied. "Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I had stayed on Zephria. I would have been married to some noble who didn't care about me, having children I was too afraid to love properly. And now I'm married to my best friend. I do work that matters. I'm part of a family that chose me." A few weeks later, Lyra started feeling sick in the mornings. At first she thought it was something she ate, but when the sickness continued, Kate ran some medical tests. "Congratulations," Kate said with a huge smile. "You're pregnant." Lyra stared at her in shock. "Pregnant?" But is that even possible? I'm Zephrian and Jake is human. Apparently it is possible, Kate laughed. The baby is perfectly healthy. Your species are more genetically compatible than anyone realized. When Lyra told Jake the news, he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. We're going to have a baby, Jake kept saying. We're going to be parents. That night, they lay in bed with Jake's hand on Lyra's still flat stomach. What do you think our child will be like? Lyra asked. Beautiful like you, smart like you, and hopefully with your talent for fixing things. And stubborn like you, and kind like you, and with your terrible sense of humor. They both laughed. Do you think the baby will have pointed ears? Jake wondered. We'll love them no matter what they look like, Lyra said firmly. Of course we will. This child is going to be the luckiest kid in the galaxy, with parents from 2 different worlds and a whole ship full of aunts and uncles. But as happy as they were, neither Jake nor Lyra knew that news of the pregnancy was already traveling through space. A Zephrian spy on a nearby space station had seen Kate ordering special prenatal vitamins and had reported back to the Empire. On the Zephrian homeworld, Lord Commander Vex read the intelligence report with growing anger. The joke bride is pregnant, he said to his council. This is unacceptable. She was supposed to come back in shame, proving human weakness. Instead, she's thriving and now carrying a hybrid child. What do we do? Asked Lady Nera. We bring her home, Vex said coldly. By force if necessary. This ends now. But Vex had no idea what he was really up against. The woman he had sent away as a powerless pawn had become something much more dangerous. A happy wife, expectant mother, and a bridge between 2 worlds. And she was not going to give up her new life without a fight. Lyra was 4 months pregnant when the Zephrian message arrived. She was in the ship's garden, teaching some of the children how to grow Zephrian flowers, when Jake came running in with a worried look on his face. Lyra, we need to talk, he said quietly, in private. The children could sense something was wrong. They gathered their things and left without being asked, which showed how much they had learned to read adult emotions during their time in space. What's wrong? Lyra asked, though she already knew it had to be something about her homeworld. Jake handed her a small device that projected a holographic message. The image of Lord Commander Vex appeared, looking even more arrogant than Lyra remembered. Lyra, of House Tanara, Vex's recorded voice said formally. By order of the Zephrian High Council, you are commanded to return home immediately. Your marriage to the human was a diplomatic arrangement only, and your responsibilities to the Empire come first. You will return alone. The message continued, but Lyra barely heard it. Her hands were shaking, and she felt sick to her stomach in a way that had nothing to do with pregnancy. They want me to come back, she whispered. You don't have to go, Jake said firmly, sitting beside her and taking her hands. We're not in Zephrian space. They can't force you. You don't understand, Lyra said, tears starting to fall. If I don't go back, they'll consider it an act of war. They'll attack this ship, and they'll attack other human ships too. I can't let innocent people die because of me. And I can't let you go back to people who treated you like a joke, Jake replied. Besides, you're carrying our child. Do you really think they'll just let you live peacefully after what they consider betrayal? Lyra knew he was right. The Zephrian Council would never forgive her for falling in love with a human and getting pregnant. They would probably take her child away and lock her up somewhere far from anyone who cared about her. But before she could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Captain Peter's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. We have Zephrian warships approaching. This is not a drill. Jake and Lyra ran to the bridge, where they found the crew frantically working at their stations. Through the main view screen, they could see 3 large Zephrian ships moving toward them. "They're demanding we surrender, Lyra," Captain Peters said grimly. "They've given us 10 minutes to comply, or they'll open fire." "How many people are on this ship?" Lyra asked quietly. 237, Lisa answered from the pilot's seat. "Including 43 children." Lyra closed her eyes. She couldn't let all these people die because of her. These weren't just humans anymore. They were her family. "I'll go," she said. "Tell them I'll surrender." "No," Jake said immediately. "We're not giving up. We'll fight them." "With what?" Lyra asked sadly. "You have 1 small ship. They have 3 warships with enough firepower to destroy a moon." But Carlos, who had been working quietly at a console, suddenly looked up with excitement. "Actually, we might have a chance," he said. "Lyra, remember those modifications you made to our defense systems? The ones that combined human and Zephrian technology?" "Yes, but they're not designed for combat," Lyra replied. "No, but they might be able to do something else." Carlos continued, "What if we could use them to send a message? A really big message that lots of people could see?" Captain Peters looked confused. "What kind of message?" Lyra suddenly understood what Carlos was thinking. "A broadcast message to the entire Zephrian Empire." "Exactly," Carlos said. "Your people might be arrogant, but they're not stupid. If they could see what really happened to you, if they could see how happy you are here, maybe some of them would start asking questions." "It's worth a try," Jake said. "Lyra, are you willing to tell your people the truth?" Lyra looked around the bridge at all the faces she had come to love. Lisa, who had taught her to laugh. Carlos, who had shown her that intelligence didn't require cruelty. Kate, who had taken care of her when she was sick. Captain Peters, who had married her and Jake with such joy. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'll tell them everything." It took 20 minutes to set up the broadcast system, using Lyra's modifications to boost the signal strong enough to reach every Zephrian communication network. During that time, the warships waited, probably confused by the delay. When everything was ready, Lyra sat in front of the camera. She wore a simple blue dress that showed her pregnancy, and her hair was arranged in the human style she had learned to prefer. But most importantly, she looked happy and confident in a way that no Zephrian noble had ever seen her before. "My name is Lyra, and I am speaking to all Zephrians," she began. "6 months ago, your leaders sent me to marry a human as a joke. They expected me to return home humiliated, proving that humans were cruel and primitive. On the Zephrian homeworld, millions of people stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcast. This was the joke bride they had heard rumors about. But I didn't return home humiliated," Lyra continued. "I returned home happy. I found love with a man who treats me as an equal partner. I found a family that chose me not because of my bloodline, but because of who I am as a person." She stood up, showing her pregnancy clearly. "I am carrying a child who is both human and Zephrian. This child represents something our leaders never expected, proof that our species can work together, can love each other, can build something beautiful instead of just competing for power." The camera pulled back to show Jake standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "The humans I live with aren't primitive," Lyra said. "They're some of the most civilized people I've ever met. They solve problems by working together instead of fighting. They take care of each other's children. They share their food and their knowledge freely." She looked directly into the camera, speaking now to the Zephrian leaders she knew were watching. "You sent me away to prove your superiority. Instead, I learned what true strength looks like. It's not about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about how you treat people who are different from you. It's about choosing love over fear." The broadcast continued for another 10 minutes, with Lyra telling specific stories about her life with the humans. She talked about Jake's kindness, about the crew's acceptance, about the children who had drawn pictures of her with pointed ears and called her Aunt Lyra. When the message ended, the bridge of the New Horizon was quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what the Zephrian ships would do. "Incoming transmission," Lisa announced. "It's from the lead warship." The face that appeared on the screen wasn't Lord Commander Vex. It was a younger Zephrian officer with thoughtful eyes. "This is Commander Zara of the warship Starlight," she said. "Lyra, your message has been broadcast throughout the Empire. There are ... reactions." "What kind of reactions?" Lyra asked. "The kind that might change everything," Zara replied. "Lord Commander Vex has ordered us to bring you back by force, but many of us are questioning those orders. You look ... different." "Happy. I am happy," Lyra said simply. "That changes things," Zara said. "Give us time to think about what we've seen. We won't attack your ship while we're deciding what to do." The transmission ended, leaving everyone on the bridge wondering what would happen next. But for the first time since the crisis began, Lyra felt hope. Her message had reached her people, and at least some of them were listening. The real test would come when she returned to face the consequences of her choices. 2 weeks later, Lyra stood in the same Zephrian council chamber where her marriage had been arranged, but everything was different now. She was 6 months pregnant, her belly round with Jake and her unborn child. Jake stood beside her, alone, with Lisa, Carlos, and Kate, who had come as witnesses to whatever would happen. The chamber was packed with Zephrians. Word of Lyra's broadcast had spread throughout the Empire, and people wanted to see the joke bride who had dared to challenge their leaders. Some looked angry, but many others seemed curious and even sympathetic. Lord Commander Vex sat on his high throne, his silver eyes cold with rage. But Lyra noticed that several council members were missing, and some of the ones who remained looked uncomfortable. "Lyra of House Tanara," Vex announced formally, "you stand accused of treason against the Zephrian Empire. You were sent to humiliate the humans and prove their weakness. Instead, you have disgraced yourself and us." "I disagree," Lyra said clearly. Her voice carried throughout the chamber, confident and strong. "I was sent to be a joke, but I became something much more important. I became a bridge between our peoples." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Many Zephrians had never heard anyone speak to the council like this. "You married a primitive alien and carry his hybrid offspring," Vex continued. "This is an insult to our pure bloodlines." "My husband is not primitive," Lyra replied. "He's kind, intelligent, and brave. And our child represents hope for both our species." Jake squeezed her hand, giving her strength. "Let me tell you what I learned among the humans," Lyra continued, addressing not just the council, but everyone in the chamber. "I learned that true civilization isn't about having the most advanced weapons or the prettiest cities. It's about how you treat people who can't fight back." She pointed to the council. "Members, when was the last time any of you asked a servant how their family was doing? When did you last share your food with someone who was hungry? When did you last admit you made a mistake and apologize for it?" The chamber was completely silent now. These were not the kinds of questions Zephrian nobles usually heard. "The humans do these things every day," Lyra said. "They helped me when I was scared and alone. They shared their knowledge with me and learned from mine. They celebrated when I got married for love, and they're excited about my baby even though it's different from their children." Commander Zara, who had been standing with the other military officers, stepped forward. "Lord Commander Vex," she said formally, "I request permission to speak." Vex looked annoyed, but he couldn't refuse without seeming weak. "Granted. I have spent the last 2 weeks reviewing intelligence reports about human society," Zara announced. "What Lyra says is true. Humans work together in ways we don't. Their ships have lower crime rates than our cities. Their children are healthier and happier. Their scientific progress comes from cooperation, not competition. This is irrelevant, Vex snapped. She still betrayed her duties to the Empire. What duties? Asked a new voice. Everyone turned to see Lady Kira, one of the younger council. Members standing up. What duties did she betray, exactly? Lady Kira continued. She was sent to marry a human and report back. She married the human, and she did report back. She told us the truth about what she found. More council members were standing now, and Lyra realized that her broadcast had created divisions among the leadership that hadn't been there before. She was supposed to come back in shame, Vex said, his voice getting louder. She was supposed to prove human inferiority. And what if she had? Asked Lord Dane, an elderly council member. What if she had returned beaten and broken? Would that have made us stronger? Or would it have just made us bullies? The argument continued for over an hour with council members, taking sides. Some still supported Vex and the old ways of thinking, but others had been influenced by Lyra's message and the evidence Commander Zara had presented. Finally, Lady Kira called for a formal vote. I propose that Lyra be pardoned for any supposed crimes against the Empire, she announced. Furthermore, I propose that we begin formal diplomatic relations with the human colonies, with Lyra serving as our first ambassador. Seconded, called. Lord Dane. Seconded, agreed Commander Zaradat. The vote was close, but the progressives won. Vex was furious, but he couldn't override a formal council decision. This is not over, he muttered to Lyra as the session ended. Yes, it is, Lyra replied. Calmly. The Empire is changing, with or without you. 6 weeks later, Lyra gave birth to her daughter in the medical bay of the New Horizon. The baby was beautiful, with Jake's brown eyes and Lyra's pointed ears. They named her Alana, which meant bright light in both human and Zephrian languages. Kate delivered the baby with tears of joy in her eyes. She's perfect, the doctor whispered as she placed the tiny girl in Lyra's arms. Jake looked down at his daughter with wonder. Look at her little fingers, he said softly. She's got your ears, but my stubborn shin. Elena opened her eyes and looked up at her parents. Her eyes were brown like Jake's, but they had tiny flecks of violet like Lyra's. She's going to be beautiful, Lyra said, exhausted but happy. News of Elena's birth spread quickly throughout both human and Zephrian space. She became a symbol of hope for many people who believed the two species could live together in peace. Commander Zara, who had become the new leader of the progressive Zephrians after Vex was removed from power, sent a message congratulating the new parents. Elena represents our future, Zara said in her recorded message. She proves that differences can make us stronger, not weaker. But not everyone was happy about the baby. Vex had gathered supporters who still believed in Zephrian superiority. They called Elena an abomination and demanded that she be taken away from her parents. Let them try, Jake said when he heard about the threats. They'll have to go through me first. Lyra was nursing Elena one evening when Jake brought her some surprising news. The Zephrian Progressive Council wants to offer you a formal position, he said. They want you to be the first ambassador for interspecies relations. What would that mean? Lyra asked. You would help create laws and policies for humans and Zephrians who want to live together, get married, have children. You'd be in charge of making sure both species are treated fairly. Lyra looked down at Elena, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. It sounds like important work. It is, and they want to base the new embassy here on the New Horizon. That way you wouldn't have to leave our family. What do you think? Lyra asked. Jake smiled. I think you'd be amazing at it. You've already changed how both our peoples think about each other. This would let you help even more people. 3 months. Later, the new Embassy for Interspecies Relations opened on the New Horizon. Lyra's first job was to help a young human man named Ben Harris, who had fallen in love with a Zephrian woman named Nyla. Their families didn't approve, but Lyra worked with both sides to help them understand that love was more important than old prejudices. "You make it look easy," Ben told her after his and Nyla's wedding ceremony. "It's not easy," Lyra replied, watching Jake play with Elena near the ship's garden. "But it's worth it." As Elena grew older, she became a bridge between the two cultures in ways her parents had never imagined. She spoke both languages perfectly and understood both societies. Other mixed families began to settle near the New Horizon, creating a small community where human and Zephrian children played together without thinking about their differences. Lord Commander Vex never gave up his hatred, but his influence grew. Smaller each year as more and more Zephrians chose cooperation over conflict. Young Zephrians especially began to question the old ways and embrace the changes that Lyra had started. One day, when Elena was 2 years old, she was playing in the garden when she found a broken flower. She picked it up and brought it to Lyra. "Mama, flower hurt," Elena said in her sweet voice that mixed human and Zephrian speech patterns. Lyra took the flower and carefully replanted it in healthy soil. "Sometimes things that are broken can be fixed," she told her daughter. "But first, someone has to care enough to try." Elena watched with big brown violet eyes as her mother worked. "Like you and Papa?" "Like me and Papa," Lyra agreed. "And like humans and Zephrians." That evening, Jake found Lyra sitting by their bedroom window, looking out at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I'm thinking about how different everything is now," she said. 6 years ago, I was just a powerless girl that the council used for their cruel joke. Now, I'm a wife, a mother, an ambassador. I have work that matters and people who love me. Do you ever regret it, leaving your old life behind?" Lyra turned to look at him, her violet eyes bright with happiness. "Never. They thought they were punishing me, but they gave me the greatest gift possible. They gave me you." Jake put his arm around her. "They gave us each other, and look what we built together." Through their window, they could see Elena sleeping peacefully in her crib, surrounded by toys from both Earth and Zephyria. In the hallway outside, they could hear other families, some human, some Zephrian, some mixed like theirs, settling down for the night. "Do you think she'll have a good life?" Lyra asked, nodding toward Elena. "I think she'll have a life where she can be anything she wants to be," Jake replied. "Human, Zephrian, or something completely new. And she'd have parents and a calm